Okay, I think it's 10 o'clock. Shall we start?
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. This is kind of an experiment. I hope this goes well. I'm so grateful to Tobias Brill for coming in and agreeing to
a bunch of people
to do this stuff. We're going to just sort of do a conversation here. So I'm going to pitch questions and he'll pitch some stuff. And I've never hosted, so I'm looking for how I mute everybody. How do I mute everybody? I don't know.
Annie, I think your mic might be on.
There is a button to mute everyone, but I'm not
Somewhere.
sure.
Yeah.
There definitely is.
Or maybe
Look at participants.
I don't have the
And go all the
power.
way.
Yeah, I don't find it, but if you could all kindly mute yourselves except Tobias, that would be lovely.
Oh, Kelly's coming.
Right.
Ah, Kelly's coming, hang on. I have no idea. No. All right. Let me introduce our wonderful artist, Tobias Brill, who is currently showing at the East Hawaii Cultural Center. I guess you all knew that. Tobias has shown here before. He's been a student at the UH Hilo as well as a student at Pratt Institute?
Yes, that's
Brooklyn?
correct. Yes.
Mm-hmm. He has an MFA. He's shown widely, and we're delighted to be showing his work through February. So I'm going to pitch a few questions, and we're just going to see where it leads from there. So Tobias, I'm wondering, where's the stuff coming from? We're looking around the room, we're seeing wonderful images from the subconscious. They're sexual, they're strange, they're disturbing. How do you feel? Where are these things coming from?
That's a good question. They're coming from a lot of places. You know, I started out very young doing drawings and stuff like most kids, and you know, at 3 years old, I had the history of underground comics.
Oh yeah.
You know, a big book in my life, and I'm not sure why, but you know, along with Archie and stuff, I had major comics, underground comics, adult comics.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like 1975 or something.
Robert Crumb, people like that.
Yeah, Gilbert Sheldon, S. Clay Wilson, the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, Zap, all this stuff. And so that was a real early time for me being exposed to that kind of stuff. And so I'd draw like Archie comics and whatnot, but then also like Mickey Rad and stuff like that, more adult comics.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 7 years old, me and a friend did our first comic book collaboration, which was Killer Dates. And you know, I remember like drawing King Kong with a big heart on and stuff. And you know, just like outrageous stuff right from the beginning. And, you know, my dad was a huge film buff and gave me my love of film. But he would take me to like rated R movies that he wanted to see, like The Deer Hunter and, you know, heavy movies. And they really had an effect on me.
That's great. I kind of guessed that from your work, and also there's something you said in one of your notebooks about heavy metal rock. I'm thinking, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, when I lived in Hawaii from 5th and 6th grade, and then moved to Southern California to be with my dad, and in junior high, and I got really into heavy metal in the 8th grade, and you know, some punk stuff too, like influenced by the movie Repo Man.
Oh boy. I bet you were the bad guy in the back of the class that got slapped for drawing bad pictures.
Not at all, not at all. I've always been very, very shy, very introverted, very quiet, you know, clam up in social situations. And yeah, so, but because of that, because in social situations, it sometimes becomes too much for me, I've always retreated to my drawing and my guitar. And so and in social situations, I would be intimidated and not really express myself so much.
Uh-huh.
But then with my drawing, I'm able to like cut loose and really express myself.
Interesting. Was it always drawing?
Music too.
Music too.
And you know, also reading.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm an only child, you know, and yeah, so.
So I saw in your diary, your notebook, some reference to traveling to Thailand and Indonesia. When was that?
Oh boy, that was in 91, 92.
So how old were you maybe?
I was, I believe I was 19 when my dad and I traveled to Thailand for a month in the summer.
Uh-huh.
And we went into Bangkok and ended up riding motorcycles through the Northern Triangle for a week.
Wow.
I met a girl over there and went to her friend's village.
Mm-hmm.
And that trip was, you know, when it was during that trip that I think I became really good friends with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very positive. And then the next year I went to Indonesia with a college friend here, and spent 2 months in Indonesia.
Oh,
And
fantastic. Java and Bali and
yeah, Jakarta, Bali, yeah, Borobudur.
I'm bringing it up because I think I may be seeing some of it in your art, or maybe I'm reading too much in, but all the snake imagery reminds me of Thailand and Indonesia.
Oh yeah, definitely cultural art throughout time. It's also influenced a little bit by Joseph Campbell.
Oh
And,
boy. Okay, that
I had
seems to make sense.
Yeah, I had a vision at one point of this flying snake vulva, you know, with
Ooh.
this kind of vulvic thing that I later changed to be like an eyeball, but with these snakes coming out like a Medusa kind of thing. And I've used
Interesting.
that quite a bit. And the snake imagery, yeah, it really interests me.
Huh. Cool. So my hunch was maybe not so off. When did you decide to pursue art as a pursuit and then a career?
Well, I always knew I wanted to do something creative. I didn't want to be stuck in a drudgery job. And I wanted to be in a band, and I thought I'd play the drums because I could sit in the back and, you know, kind of hide.
Yeah.
But, and then I wanted to be a film director in high school, but I had no resources to pursue that. So I started going to college at University of Hawaii at Hilo, here in Hilo. And just was a liberal arts major. And I took one drawing class. I really didn't take art very much in high school. I took one drawing class at UHH, and it was so hard, and my teacher was so militant, Wayne Miyamoto, that I just decided, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I moved on, and I was playing basketball with a friend at the old gym, one-on-one, and Wayne was playing with his friends. And then we finished up, and I took this kind of like Steph Curry shot from 3/4 of the way across the court and sank a basket. And Wayne saw me do that, and then he approached me, and he was very nice and coaxed me back into the art department, and he became a mentor.
My goodness. Huh.
Yeah.
So you got your BA at Hilo?
Yes.
And what made you think about going to Pratt in Brooklyn?
I applied to a number of schools, and I got into Pratt, and it was a no-brainer. I was going to go to New York.
Sure. And Pratt's fantastic.
Yeah, they have the biggest campus there of any art school, and situated in Brooklyn. And it was just an amazing time. You know, with all the other student artists I met, and being exposed to everything going on in New York City with the galleries and the museums and the plays and the theater, and it was just quite an experience. I stayed there for 8 years. 3 years at Pratt, and then 4 years, 5 years working at an art supply store in Manhattan, Utrecht Art Supplies.
Oh, okay. I probably know the store.
Yeah, I think it's closed down now, but it was right there on 4th Avenue between 11th and 12th Streets.
Mm-hmm. I wondered, across all this time, did your work change? Were you always doing drawing? I know you've done some painting as well. There's some in the show.
Yeah, no, initially it was more painting.
Okay.
And the drawing really took off at Pratt, and yeah, so I've been doing drawing steadily. I've been, making work really steadily since probably 91, 92.
Oh boy. Did your teachers push you in one direction or another, or did they sort of let you evolve?
Well, at UHH, it was really about aesthetics and formal issues, and they weren't really worried about content at all. In fact, it seemed like they kind of promoted abstract work.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really I started getting into more kind of different crazy imagery here. And then when I went to Pratt, usually what would happen would be that the art school would break the student down and,
Yep.
and make them, kind of reemerge with a more thought out critical process possibly. But I was so set in my ways, I almost didn't even need art school. I mean, I pretty much did my own thing the whole time. And I already had my vision when I got there, and it just developed.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Let's take a look at some of the stuff on the show here, if I can figure out how to do this. Share screen. There's my PowerPoint. And slideshow. There, can you see my PowerPoint there?
Damn animals poster with the statement.
Yeah, damn animals. I love the title. You seem to have a gift for titles.
Yeah, words and images go together for me. I can just sit there and just think like, oh, I'd like to say something here. And then, it just comes to me, and it's just very automatic and intuitive.
Uh-huh. I'm really interested in your statement. It's a wonderful statement. Some artist statement, you read it and you kind of turn it sideways and it doesn't make sense one way or the other. This is really interesting. Talking about your images as people and animals with good instincts and bad instincts, and turning from good to bad and all that. Ooh, is that something you've been thinking about a long time?
Well, I've been aware that we are animals for a long time, and yeah, the statement kind of came out of sketchbook drawings, and the idea of being animals. I was in California like 2 summers ago working in my sketchbook, and drew a series of female figures, and it came to me, the damn animals. And when I was trying to figure out ideas for a concept for a show, that was one of the ideas. I had other ideas as well, but that was a strong one. And then Andre, the curator for this show, Andre Kramars, liked that a lot, and we discussed it. And then I went to work on crafting the statement that would be open enough to fit a body of work, and yet particular enough to say something, something intelligent.
It's really interesting to read it. It sounds like there's some pain behind it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's pain in our times. I mean, I wrote this right before COVID happened last year, but, unfortunately, I kind of feel like we're just about in the end times with this great catastrophic die-off that we're experiencing with animals, but also with the rainforests and all that.
It's funny. I've been using that same term. This is end times.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, other people have used that term, but you know, here in Hawaii, our oceans are going to be rising, and you know, surf breaks are going to get taken out, beaches, and it's all because the ice caps are melting, and the ice caps are melting because of the CO2 in the air, and the CO2 in the air, I believe, is you know, human caused for the most part, and I fear that we're not acting fast enough. Unfortunately, I mean, I love our world that we get to fly and drive and do all kinds of cool, convenient things, but unfortunately, we haven't thought it through, and you know, things are going downhill, I feel like, and so, and then, yeah, I mean, there's so much difference in opinion and difference in belief, and I think we do need more unity and leadership to help stave off some of these important catastrophic things that are going on.
I'm looking at your last words here. Can kindness and good win over, or are the animals burning the ship? What do you think?
Well, I think we are burning the ship, but you know, there is a hope for kindness and good, I believe. I'm hopeful.
Okay.
You know, this past year was just crazy with the Black Lives Matter movement and the police brutality and the election.
The post-election.
The post-election. Yeah, I mean, I really thought the world was going to end, and as we know it. And I did a series of kind of political pieces that didn't make it into this show, but I do want to be a change agent for good and for positive developments. And I think it is important as an artist to speak up and use your talent to help out, to help, you know, to use a cliche, help the world be a better place.
Interesting. Let's take a look at some of the work. I love this coloring book. I hope people realize there's a coloring book here taken from some of the drawings in the show. It's for sale here at the EHCC for $18.
It's not really a coloring book, though.
No?
I don't actually want people to color in it.
Oh, okay. We're not going to color in it.
That was the original idea, but the way it was printed, I don't think it could take if you were going to use precision markers, I think it might bleed through to the other side. So I'll just throw that out there. Maybe it's more just a record of the show or a book of drawings.
Okay, well, I'm glad to have it. I wonder if you could help us with some of the imagery. A lot of the stuff, obviously, it's very sexual, and a lot of the stuff is obviously sexual dynamics. And it looks like sometimes the guy is the monster and sometimes the girl's the monster, or am I misreading? Like this one here, you've got, it looks like a nice young woman and oh my God, she's pursued by this ogre. How do you read this image?
Are you talking about the guy with the pyramid head?
Yeah.
Well, he's not an ogre.
Oh, okay, who is he?
Well, I mean, he's just, oh, excuse me, there's some horn is going off here. But he is, no, I don't have a story for this guy. He seems like a normal guy to me. He's got the pyramid head mask, and the woman, you know, is happy. She's reacting to him as he's walking by. And I think both women and men are monsters in a way, or can be. I think we all are. We're all, you know, we carry multitudes. We are multitudes, but no, I think it's upbeat.
What's the mask?
The mask,
is that just his own self-presentation, or is that his power source?
I think it's a reflection of his intellectual powers, although it is a little small and it looks like he has a small brain, but it's I deal with masks a lot and kind of grotesque face and you know, people with horns or animals with horns, but I feel like the horns aren't necessarily related to devils. I feel like they're related more to animals with horns.
Okay.
And,
so these figures aren't necessarily good or evil. They're just kind of doing what they need to do.
Yeah, I think maybe they show a little bit more what's on the inside. I think the outside presentation isn't just an illustration of their complete character. I feel like it's a temporary character that can change and be in flux. And I think it's very momentary and spontaneous, and you know, they're in situations, social situations, mental situations, psychic situations, and dynamics are being played out that that are exposed in the way they look visually at that moment.
Interesting. What about the sky? Is that ominous, or is that just sort of free-floating erotic angst?
Well,
like, is that the sky for both of them, or is that sky for her or him?
Well,
or
I'm not actually seeing the whole drawing here, but I feel like it's
Whoop, sorry.
Oh, we
Didn't mean
lost
to
it.
do that. There we are.
No, but I mean, a little bit of it is that I like to fill up space, maybe a little horror evacuate kind of thing. But
Okay.
But this is in the atmosphere. The works are very atmospheric, psychologically atmospheric, and I'm just riffing on stuff. You know, some of it is automatic drawing, some of it is things that I'm in the habit of drawing. So you'll see a series of work with a similar element, like this drawing with the man with the pyramid head mask. I did that for maybe a month or something on a lot of different works. And so things kind of cycle through. For a while, I was doing a lot of socks with stripes on them and stuff. And there's just certain things that kind of almost like fetishes for me that I just latch onto. And they don't always last that long. And then sometimes I bring them back. But it's kind of a toolkit of imagery that I use, that I borrow from myself and throughout different works of art.
Interesting. Let's look at another one. Let's see. I picked these almost at random. These are photos. Don't blame Andre. These are my photos from my telephone of the exhibition as it's hung right now. So lest anybody get upset like I was, those are not pins. Those are magnets. First I saw the hanging, I thought, oh no, they've stuck pins through his drawings, but small change. A lot of these have titles and I don't always follow. Are they? Well, please tell us about them.
Well, okay, well, the way I work, I don't plan it out in advance. So I'll start a drawing, and then just like with my sketchbooks, I'll write something possibly like this small change. And I think I wrote that fairly early on. And then I'm not, you know, it could be a small change in my life, or a small change in the country, or a small change for one of the characters in the drawing, or it could be, you know, mean that I've only got a little bit of money, or there's a lot of different things it could mean. But
so you start with maybe the title and then free associate around it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really think that I feel that I have to tell you what is happening in this drawing. I think that it can be a subjective experience that you can, you know, come up with your own story. I think that's more interesting. In fact, when I hear other people's takes on it, you know, it's something I would have never have thought of, and I really like that. And yeah, I mean, you know, the drawing progresses, or the painting, you know, on its own. It's almost like I'm just a conduit for this stuff that's coming from my subconscious, or maybe from somewhere else. And you know, like with the beast figure at the bottom, I started drawing that And I made some big mistakes in the drawing of it because with all these drawings, they're done in ink. And so I work directly in ink. I don't use pencil at all. I just draw, and it's just an additive process.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this beast, but what I figured out is that like Keith Haring, you know, I basically don't make mistakes. I can't make a mistake. I'll make it work if I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when I saw 60 Minutes a couple years ago, and there was a jazz musician on it saying that he played with Miles Davis early in his career. You know, he was playing, and it was his turn to solo. I tell my students this, and he hit a note that was off key, and he kind of blew it, and he felt really bad about it. And then Miles Davis came on, and he incorporated that, and you know, rhythmically, you know, did repetitions of it and harmonized it and made it work. And so that's what I do with my work. And like with this beast, I did something that was a terrible mistake that, you know, looked bad, but I figured out a way to make it work, and it actually made it a stronger image and a stronger drawing by finding a solution that I hadn't pre-planned.
Interesting. I was sort of wondering how much you plan these out and how much you just sort of let them happen.
I totally let them happen. I don't plan them out really at all, unless, I mean, sometimes I guess I do a little bit, but something like this, like with the perspective on the floor, that was totally made up. With the little creature, with the man in the cell on the bottom inside, that was just a good idea I had. I mean, I basically feel like I'm kind of an idea person with my writing and my drawing. I mean, it has so much to do with my imagination, and I just enjoy using my imagination in this way.
Huh. Okay, well, I'm going to interpret then. Do I see you on the left side there?
Not really.
Okay.
Maybe me like 20 years ago, possibly. But I do put self-portraits in my work, and usually they're very self-deprecating. I don't usually idealize myself, or very rarely do I do that.
Huh, interesting. This is fun. Okay, thank you. I'm learning a lot here. I'm not sure what all I put in this PowerPoint, so let's just see. Oh, this is a wilder one. This is where I started thinking, you know, I bet this guy has been seeing Tibet, Indonesia, Thailand, or maybe just hard rock album covers. But the figures with the headdresses and the emanating snakes and all of that so much of your work is involved with.
Yeah. And also the meditating figure. I do practice Zazen meditation. I belong to a Sangha here in Hilo, and that's had a big influence on my life. And you know, my mom was a Buddhist when I was growing up. My dad was an atheist, but I've been drawn to meditation for a long time, and I get a lot out of it. It helps me focus. It helps me, you know, remain calm in intense situations sometimes if I remember to practice.
I mean, to me, looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, you say it's a meditating figure. I'm seeing sexual creatures all over the place getting so out of control that in the upper left there, it just turns into pure abstraction. Is that a crazy reading?
No, that's a pretty literal take on it. Yeah, I mean, when I'm doing these, I'm really thinking about also the formal aspects and, you know, negative space, the spaces in between things, and you know, depicting the figure somewhat realistically. Sometimes that doesn't matter. You know, and coming up with interesting associations, like the character on the lower right. I don't have my glasses on, but it almost looks like the post is coming out of his head or something.
Yeah.
And you know, I hadn't really looked at that in a long time, and to me that's interesting. Or in the middle, the claw foot on the guy's head, the way that's happening is interesting to me. You know, some aspects aren't as interesting to me, but but yeah, I mean, you know, this is a kind of a spiritual animistic drawing, and I'm related to that. I mean, I'm interested in that kind of work. I'm interested in the in-between spaces and the subconscious, in the spirituality that may be happening, and the stuff that isn't always rational. You know, things that coming up that don't make sense. Like I actually coined a term for my work a while ago called Empirical Surrealism, basically means surrealism based on personal, you know, experience. And I try to put some of that into my work. To me, that's important, you know, to go past the mundane and the everyday, and to go into this realm that is not so known, not so talked about, not so obvious.
Do you ever think about bringing Joseph Campbell into your work, or is it just sort of always there? The ideas of you know, universal mythological metaphors.
I do think about it. I think it is there. I really appreciate the indigenous cultures and the mythologies that they have and use. And I don't always think of Joseph Campbell, but I saw some good videos about him, and you know, it's just so inspiring. You know, it's just so fascinating for me.
One thing this drawing brings to mind, I'm a very bad artist, but I do try to do life drawing, and boy, I love your life drawing.
Oh yeah, me too. I've been doing life drawing very seriously. We had to stop for the pandemic, but I even teach life drawing sometimes, and
okay.
That's a whole other side to my work, is the life drawing and portraiture. In fact, that's the only type of observational drawing I really do, is the figure, unless I'm practicing for students or to do demos. But yeah, drawing the figure is so much fun, and it's so rewarding. And yeah, I get a lot out of it.
I mention it because I think when people first approach your exhibit here, they might be distracted by the kind of the cartoonish quality, the crazy stuff. And you take a second glance and you realize, ooh, this guy draws a mean figure. as well as, you know, the formal aspects are there, but they're not always the first thing that I think a newcomer would bring to your work.
Right, and that's developed over time. I mean, early on, I wasn't as good like that. I mean, I had my good moments, but yeah, teaching art is great, because it's really forced me to go back and really learn proper ways to do things. You know, like doing sighting, you know, and you know, tools to draw. I mean, you know, in college, I you know, was given sketchbooks. I mean, not, but textbooks to read, you know, for classes, and I never read them, but I saved them. And then it wasn't until I was, you know, going to teach, I was like, wow, I better read this, and you know, then it made a lot of sense, and it really opened up a lot of things for me.
Same here. I'm an art history teacher too. Same thing. Oh, I guess I better read this and find out who Raphael was. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, let's see what else we got here. Oh, there's Andre. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the experience of shaping a show with a curator like Andre. And here he is with your display of the pile of notebooks. And I really love that. I see a lot of people just fascinated by that cube of glass full of old notebooks. What was it like working with Andre?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah, I mean, I've had shows before, but I've never had a curator work with me to this level. You know, what usually happens is that I get the show, and then I have the work, I pick the work, I install the show, you know, I hang it myself, everything is done with me. But this was a totally different experience. We've been working on this for about 1.5 years. And Andre, from the beginning, you know, he came to my house and did a studio visit, and he just started getting ideas immediately. you know, ideas for the sketchbooks to be displayed, and ideas for the recording sound element, which I'd never done anything like that ever. And the pile of sketchbooks, of course, is this imagery, this photo. Also the coloring book idea. You know, I'd wanted to do a book for forever, and you know, Andre made it happen. He actually made it happen, and there was a lot of stress on my part and a lot of insecurities with a lot of these things. And but Andre is very strong-willed and you know, very focused and tuned into what his vision is. And I agreed. I decided to go with Andre's vision very early on, like a year ago, where I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do what he says. I know that sounds weird, but I decided to trust in his vision because I've seen his other shows. I was a part of his DQ'd show 3 years ago here. I did a big work drawing, and that show was excellent. And then his own solo show here at the gallery maybe a year or so ago was also excellent. And I saw a show of his he did at Hilo Fine Arts in Keao, Shipman, years ago, like 7 years ago or something, and that show was excellent. And so, you know, he's just got a great eye, and yeah, so the way he, like this was totally different because I dropped off the work and then he just did everything. I didn't have to set up anything. I kind of stacked the sketchbooks. That was like the only thing I really did. And then the other thing was a week before the opening, just 2 weeks ago, Andre was like calling me up and saying, hey, what if we do some collaborative pieces? I've got these 2 panels. Can you do these?
A week ago?
Yeah, a week before the show.
Oh my goodness.
So there's 2 panels. There's a 30 by 34 and a 30 by 48 panel in here.
Right.
That he prepared, and he's like, I'll have it done by 1 o'clock. Do you want to come and pick it up and do it this week? And I was like, oh my God. Like, okay, I guess.
That is a high wire act.
And he's like, you got to make them dense too. And like, he put a little stipulation. I was like, oh boy. And I come in to pick them up, and he's like, oh yeah. And I've got this big door I want you to work on. Can you work on a door too and paint it? And I was just like, wow, that's a lot. And he's like, well, it's your show. I was like, okay.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah, literally the week before the show opened, I started working on 3 new pieces. And I pretty much had them finished when I dropped them off. They were, I mean, the door maybe could use a little bit more, but it was basically finished. And then I had real second thoughts. Like I was like, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't open it up to a collaborative work, because his idea was to have the public work on them. And I had real second thoughts, but then, you know, again, I was just like, well, I'm just going to go with Andre's vision on this. You know, I've gone this far and it's great, so why not continue?
Wow.
And,
well, I'm going to gossip. I'll tell you, when Andre talks about the show, one thing he always says is, my God, the honesty. That by using those notebooks, you've really allowed us to peer into your soul to an extent which I find almost a little frightening. There's a lot in those notebooks. Are you okay with that? I mean, obviously you're okay with it. There they are. But what do you think about sort of exposing yourself to the public like that?
Well, it is a big move. I mean, Andre, again, he was like, well, Tobias, you know, some of the notebooks, do you want me to put them up high so people can't see them? They'll just see the open page, but they can't look through them. And I thought that was a great idea, but I was like, well, no, just make it aesthetically pleasing and put them however you think it'll work the best.
Wow, so it was your idea to have them actually readable.
Well, it was his idea in the beginning. And I will say also that I need to thank my friend Lonnie Timono for making the shelves. He did a beautiful job. He made like 11 or 12 or a couple prototypes, and we ended up using 10 of them. And they just came out phenomenal, and I'm so grateful. But,
let's see what else we got here. Oh, some of these things are colored. My imagination is broken. Did you start with that, do you think? Do you remember?
I don't think I did start with that, but I can't remember. But I will just say one more thing about the sketchbooks was
Sure.
that I do feel a little exposed with the show, and that was something that I went back and forth with Andre about. But I will just say that I did have a student come the first day with his mom, and they looked through just about every page of every sketchbook, and and it did strike me, and I was a little embarrassed, but I realized that, you know, there's no reason for me to be embarrassed by my personal self-expression, or for that matter, my thoughts, because these really are my thoughts. And I feel like, you know, it's valid to think whatever you think. You shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed by it, as long as you're not actually hurting anybody.
It's brave. I think it's brave. Oh, what was I going to ask about this? Oh, color. Do you enjoy color? Do you not enjoy color?
Oh yeah, I enjoy color immensely. Yeah, this is a color work. The background in the sky was done with gouache or watercolor. I think gouache, and then the other stuff was done with markers, ink markers, and it's something that I always want to do when I think of my to-do list, is to do more color drawings with markers or paint markers or watercolors or gouache. And it's something that it really bridges the gap between drawing and then painting. And I originally was an oil painter, but then I switched to acrylic. But the paintings take, you know, a super long time depending on the level of detail. I can do them quickly or you know, take months to finish something. The drawings are generally much quicker, either in a session or a few sessions over a few days, maybe 15 hours or something. That would even be a lot, but yeah, the color, but the color drawings are in the middle between the black and white drawings and the paintings, and they go faster. And
Sure.
I enjoy it a lot. I love making people different colors and whatnot. And also the patterning is something I really enjoy.
Okay, I see. It's also, of course, what you're inviting the public to play with too.
Exactly.
Where do I have that? Yeah. Okay, here's. Oh my gosh, it's Jimmy. At least his back end there. So 3 of these works are interactive in the gallery for people who haven't seen the show yet. And Tobias has invited us just to go in and use the colors, participate. What are you going to do with these?
At first, I thought it was a great idea, and then I thought it was a terrible idea after the first day. And then now coming in this morning, I'm like, wow, this is beyond what I even thought could happen. So what I'm going to do with them, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. One idea is to take them back in the studio afterwards and rework them and go off of what other people have done. I'm not sure. It's going to depend on what they look like at the end.
So it's going to be interactive doubly.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe if somebody wants to purchase something, they can. I didn't even come up with prices for those, but I'm kind of leaving it open right now as to what happens to them. I'm
noticing, I sit the gallery on Tuesday, so I sat there last Tuesday watching, and almost everybody who engages with the show, which is almost everybody who walks in, they end up coloring one of the paintings. It's very successful. It's really pulling people in. Yeah, I wanted to, for the panels, I supplied my own paint markers. I brought in 25 paint markers because I didn't want like a clunky brushwork kind of thing messing up the contours and the forms. And so I thought, well, if I give them precision markers, you know, maybe that'll be okay. And it has been okay. Great. See what else what did I skip here? Oh man. Imagery. Okay, we've done that one. Again, boy, I admire your life drawing. Is that a good guy or a bad guy on the right? Or is it just a guy?
Well, I think it's an interesting guy. So
Okay.
all that stuff going on in the head, that's all a reflection of what's going on inside of that person, I feel like.
Okay.
And it's also almost like a tattoo or something that he's also displaying, whether he wants to or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like I wouldn't want to put on him good or bad. That would be like too defining.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's complicated and he's layered.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
And on the other side there, just kind of a random notebook page. I'm trying to learn your language. Okay, we got vaginas, we've got eyes, we've got, I'm not sure, is that a turd in the lower right or is that a cloud or a what?
Maybe it's a piece of paint that came out of a paint tube.
Okay. Do you have an explicit iconography that you've worked through, or are these again just kind of free associations?
Both. These are basically like on the lower left looks like maybe an eye form.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'll say that I did have kind of a vision back in 1999 where I saw an eye form.
Aha.
And I've ripped off that like numerous times. It's also up near the right, below the vagina there, there's an eye form that under the word painting that that I use a lot from basically something that came to me. And yeah, I mean, I do have an iconography that I draw on, but much of it is mark making that I then develop, and it turns into something that I hadn't planned, and also the element of pattern comes in, obviously, and through pattern I'm able to get some intricate stuff that appeals to me visually. I mean, I really like opulent work. The artist Chris O'Feely from the 1990s, his work he did in the 1990s, very opulent, you know, very detailed. I like Basquiat for his freedom. I like Agnes Martin for her compulsive, obsessive diligence and mark making, and even Manuel Ocampo for his outrageous sensibility and his, you know, don't give a heck attitude.
Okay. Okay. These are all kind of random on my PowerPoint. I ran across this in one of your notebooks. Oh my goodness, you do have a gift for titles. Women, men, creatures, nipples, dirt, and bullets with Mador Who.
Yeah, I think she came
I
up
didn't see the show. I don't know anything about the show except this notice. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was a great show. It was in 2009, and it was at IdSpace. I don't know if you went to that gallery, but it was in Hawaiian Acres, owned and run by Steve Friedman. And
our board chair.
Yeah, and he gave me 2 shows there. I was actually in 2 two-person shows there, and this was the second one. And I think Mador came up with that title. And that image of the figure is mine, but the nipples there and the dirt are hers. So that was a combination somebody put together. But yeah, that was probably the other show that I think was one of my best shows. This show and that show. I had a room in that gallery, and I put paper all over the walls and ceilings because we didn't know how hard it would be to paint over ink, but I put the paper over it and then it drew all over the walls and ceilings. And so it was an environment, you know, something like the Sistine Chapel, but obviously it wasn't the Sistine Chapel, but I did stuff like this in the corners and on the ceiling and on the, you know, on the panels overlapping left to right walls. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, Steve gave me, you know, incredible freedom. I was able to do anything I wanted. I did do some libidinous sexual stuff, and a lot of just basically all figurative stuff. And I'd really like to do that again. And I think next time I'd be able to use acrylic paint markers, because you can paint over them with acrylic and, lose it if you need to. But that was a temporary show. I did save the paper from the show, but I've just had it in tubes for the past 10 years, and I don't even know if it's still, if it molded or what. But
this is Hawaii.
Yeah, it is.
Great. Okay. Are you a devil worshiper? That seemed to keep coming up in the notebooks.
Well, that's funny, because when I was into heavy metal, like in the 8th and 9th grade, 10th grade, I did listen to bands like Slayer, and I saw them in concert, and I went to all the concerts: Megadeth, Metallica, Ozzy, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, all these crazy metal bands. And some of those bands did have lyrics that were associated with the devil or whatever. And but students, other students at high school, would call us devil worshipers and stuff. And I really wasn't into that aspect of it. I mean, the imagery intrigued me, the album covers intrigued me. But,
I wondered about album covers.
But I never really believed in the devil like that. Like, I don't really believe in God in quite that way. And so I felt misinterpreted. And then when I first started teaching at Hawaii Community College in 2009, I had a night class, and I was teaching drawing. And I showed some images, some Picasso images, and some other images that I was having the students draw to learn about contour line drawing. And one of the students was actually a staff member at the college, and she was just taking a college class for fun. But she did ask me point blank if I was a devil worshiper based on the drawings I was having them draw. And it seemed like so asinine to me. And other people have brought it up too. A couple years ago, outside of this gallery, outside of East Hawaii Cultural Center, there was an opening, and I was talking with one of my friends, and he was like, "Yeah, your artwork is like a devil masturbating."
Oh dear.
And it struck me, like, really, that's what you see? But yeah, it seems to dog me a little bit.
Well, I'm an art historian, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'll do this fast, but I've been thinking, of course, about analogies to your work, and you've mentioned a lot of them. The first thing a lot of us see when we were just chatting here at the center is, oh my God, that's so Boschian. And oh, we all love these things. We all have these as college posters in our rooms. But one thing that strikes me is in your work, you've got this sort of satanic imagery, maybe, or maybe I've overinterpreted that. But what I really like is you've got people doing vanities and carnal things and crazy things. And on the one hand, this is supposed to be sin. And on the other hand, looks like they're having a blast. And there's this whole Western tradition, I think, of kind of presenting human folly and human carnality with a wink. Like, oh dear, but boy, what a hoot. Or finding it at least ambiguous amongst the animals, as you call them. I'll use some details from the Bosch painting, or, oh, this is hell. This is what happens if you have too much fun. And oh my God, it's attractive. This is the most popular painting in the Prado. People stand 10 feet deep to stare at the details on this thing.
I want to go see it someday.
And I just love the ambiguity between, oh, this is bad, you're sinners, and yeah, but you're having a blast, aren't you? And even the punishments kind of look like fun.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bosch was just so into his imagination and his world that this was just a love. I mean, just think how happy he must have been doing that work.
You think so? And he did a lot of it.
Yeah, I think,
there's one in Lisbon, and yeah.
Yeah, Bosch, I mean, his work is so great. I mean, I aspire to be able to do stuff like that. I want to be able to do stuff like that. And he's definitely one of my influences and inspirations. I love his work.
I never know when I'm making this stuff up and when I'm actually in the ballpark.
No, you hit it on the head there. I'd like to do some stuff that was really Boschian with more realism, and so there'd be more illusion and maybe magical realism as well. I mean, that's something I aspire to do, but it's hard for me to make jumps ahead. My real go-to is just drawing and doing automatic stuff, but that is interesting to me.
Yeah, part of the fun of Bosch, I think, again, when you first approach it, it looks just crazy and wild, and you're so overwhelmed by that. And then a second look is, damn, he could paint. Damn, he could draw.
Oh yeah,
it's beautiful stuff.
Those things are small too, right? They're really small paintings. You really must use like these incredibly detailed little brushes and.
Oh, like one hair brushes. Yeah, they're tiny, tiny.
Yeah.
Or some drawing stuff here. Another thing that reminded me of your work, Temptation of St. Anthony. He's a Christian saint. He's a hermit in the desert. He's assailed by carnal thoughts and other such nonsense. Beautiful naked women tempt him. They pull on him. And there's this whole tradition of kind of putting that out of myself. It's not me. It's not my fault. It's the demons. I'm a good guy. I'm a monk. It's the demons that are making me do this. I don't know if that resonates with you.
I definitely have my demons and my demons and my angels for sure. I do imagery like that. Oh yeah, and Goya here. Yeah, I show this image to my class sometimes.
Do you? I love this image.
This series, this is part of the
Los Caprichos.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, yeah, he's a master for sure. He's one of the best, all-time best.
And this again made me think a lot of your work. The idea that he was a man of reason. He was a man of the Enlightenment, and kind of went nuts in the end over the contradictions. And more later in his life, he got into this notion that the sleep of reason produces monsters. That when you set that aside, who knows what comes out.
I love his Disasters of War series too.
They're all, I just saw there's a new show of them at the Met in New York, so we're all going to charter a plane and go see it.
Oh, good. Okay, take me.
I was also thinking of this, and you beat me to it, so okay. Underground comics movement.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then I was wondering about this, if the Southeast Asian kind of Buddhist imagery, Tibetan imagery, or Naga imagery had sunk in, and again, it sounds like it had a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing these. These are great images. Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring. Just looking at this is totally inspiring.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's all I've got. Good. That's a relief. No more of me. Back to you. What do you want people to get out of the show?
Well, I just like them to see it and experience it. I think that's the most important thing.
Go back here.
They can.
Is there a moral thing you want people to take away, or an enlightening image, or just all that we've been talking about?
Maybe just kind of a liberal, not so conservative type of, viewpoint, maybe. I mean, I know that my work isn't really going to speak to everybody in a positive way. A lot of people aren't going to get it. It's only some people are going to get it. And my work really isn't for the mainstream. So anybody who can get anything out of it is great. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I've got. And thank you so much for sharing your ideas as well as your art with us. Again, I think we're all impressed by the sheer honesty of the thing as well as the beauty. It's really been impressive. I wonder if other people have questions.
I have two little quick comments and then a question. My
Great.
quick comments, I can take 2 inches of your work and get lost for hours. I just love it. I just want to dive in. And I think it's because rather than you contriving a story or anything, you kind of you puncture our reality with possibilities. So thank you for that, Tobias. I love your work. Lastly, the real question is, you know, it feels to me like there's there might be a communion between your work and, since you love film, animation. Have you ever thought about that?
Oh yeah, I definitely thought about animation. I would love to be an animator. I've tried a couple times to get into it a little bit, but it's just so hard. It's just so, you know, it takes so long. And I think, you know, with whether it's like stop motion or single cell drawing, I think as the technology gets better, it's going to get easier. And it's definitely something I'd love to do.
Your work already seems so full of movement. So it almost seems like that's the next step in this digital world. Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll keep watching and appreciating what we have now, and we'll see what comes.
Okay,
It's a great idea. Other questions? Okay. Actually, I'm going to throw in an observation. I sat at the desk all Tuesday, and I was there at the opening on Saturday. I was actually a little afraid of the audience reaction. It's so sexual. And a lot of the images, so particularly female sexual. And I thought, uh-oh, somebody's going to walk in and freak. And I would watch as 2 or 3 women would walk in. I think, uh-oh, this is the one who's going to freak. And nobody did, at least not that I'm aware of. Instead, they say, oh, and they start going through the notebooks. And people are taking a lot of time with this show. And by the end of the notebooks, they're down there on their knees with the colored pencils. They're helping your art. So I'm feeling like, now I'm speaking partly as a gay man. I'm not used to female sexual images a lot. So I'm actually learning a lot through your eyes. Okay, that's interesting. But I'm also thinking that people are respecting your vision. It's like, all right, if he's going to be this honest, we're going to meet him halfway and respect it and see what's going on here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. I thought that I really toned down this exhibition.
Really?
Yeah, I actually, you know, didn't show Andre some of my more explicit stuff because I wanted to tone it down a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I have had some backlash from my work over the years. It has happened. Actually, a local business, I had started to use them for a G-Clay thing to make prints of my work. And then 3 years ago, I was going to have a show in San Francisco at a kink cafe and boutique, a little solo show. And so I thought, oh, I'll do some prints of this painting that was pretty crazy. And basically, the business just refused to print it. In fact, they refused to do business with me after that.
Oh dear! Oh dear!
Yeah. And so that was a shock. But so
you've run into censorship and backlash.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. I have. Interesting. Well, so far it seems to be a real hit show. What I'm watching, and I do watch, I'm loving watching people kind of what looks to me like come to a place of respect and engagement.
That's great.
Are there any other questions? Well, I think it's probably time. And again, thank you so much for sharing all that with us, and thank the audience for jumping in. Yeah, I think we're all set then.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.